I'm delighted to be joined today by Amy Gallagher, who may not be known to many of you, but is a name you should know. Amy is a nurse and a psychotherapist. And 2 years ago, she got into some hot water for her terrible racist and prejudiced views, which amounted to basically objecting to the dogma that whiteness is a problem for our time and that all white people are racist. So obviously she's a terrible person. Amy, it's a great pleasure. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure you've done loads of these media interviews now, but for any readers that are not familiar with your case, could you just give us a general overview of how your case came about?
Yeah, that's fine. So as you said, yeah, I'm a nurse. I work in the area of mental health, and I decided to train to become a psychotherapist. So I'd already done, so to train to be a psychotherapist, it takes 4 years. I'd already done 2 years at Tavistock and completed a postgraduate diploma there. And I went back to do the final 2 years and then to fully train as a psychotherapist. So I returned at the sort of academic year in 2020. And pretty much quite early on into the course, it seemed to me to be highly politicized. So the first experience I had was I had to attend a lecture on race and racism, and it didn't seem to have very much to do with psychotherapy at all. It was very political, talking about Black Lives Matter and various other things. And there was a sort of thread running through it that felt very anti-Christian to me. Christianity was being linked to slavery, to lots of negative things, and it was very one-sided and biased. So at the end of the lecture, I simply said, I'm curious about why that particular religion is being singled out and blamed in a quite biased way. And I was told, well, Christianity is responsible for racism because it's European. Which there's so many things to say about that. Yeah, and I just and nobody seemed to disagree, and I was the only one that could see that. Hang on, this isn't quite right. And then not long after that, it's about 3 days later, I got sent a lecture called "Whiteness: A Problem for Our Time." Which obviously was just the title itself was quite surprising to me. And I looked on their website and they were highly publicizing this lecture. They were calling it a policy lecture. And they were saying that on their website, they put whiteness and racism are the same thing, and that it's the job of white people to stand up to racism in particular. And the lecture itself said all manner of sort of what I would consider racist things. It used phrases like white ignorance, white fragility. It said if a white person just says that they're not racist, that would be meaningless because you can't be white and not be racist. So on. So I was quite shocked and surprised by all of this, and as well, it was totally one-sided. There wasn't a kind of there is this theory, but here are the downsides, here are why some people disagree with it. It was kind of presented as this is the truth. And actually, if you disagree, that's evidence of your white fragility or you're being defensive. Absolutely. So it's kind of, it's written into the ideology that you sort of can't disagree with it. So I was very concerned at that point that I was paying money into an institution that's openly pushing ideas which I absolutely detest, and I was not too happy about that. So I responded to this lecture and sent an email in response to the student group and to the course lead saying, I personally don't think we should see being white as a problem, and that this is an ideology called critical race theory, and it's actually not part of traditional psychology or psychotherapy. And we need to be aware that there's different viewpoints. We could be treating patients with different viewpoints, and actually a sign of psychological health is to be aware of that, to be aware that there is no one total truth and that people see the world in different ways. And I gave I sent around a clip of our Equalities Minister, Kemi Badenoch, talking about these issues in Parliament. And in response to that, I was called into a meeting with the course lead, and essentially there was a sense that I'd done something wrong by responding to it in that way. I was told, because of my views, the course might not be right for me. And I asked about this lecture, and I said, is that the view of that particular lecturer, or is that the view of the trust more broadly? And she said that the lecture "Whiteness a Problem for Our Time," a view that all white people are racist, was the sort of official view of the Tavistock, which I was particularly shocked by. And she went on to say it's a bit like the way there's an inherent sexism in all men. And I said, well, I don't agree with that either, so that doesn't really help us. And she essentially said that it's an anti-racist organisation. And I said, well, my idea of not being racist is not judging a person by the colour of their skin and treating people equally and not being prejudiced. And she said, which I refer to as the colourblind position. And she said that the Tavistock view that as discredited and outdated.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So at this point, I was really shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, what have I stepped into? I was suspecting it might be a little bit kind of woke, but I didn't realise it would be this strongly, ideologically captured. I was like, oh wow, okay. And I was thinking I'm going to have to face another 2 years on this course. So I was thinking, do I quit? Do I go somewhere else? I've already paid some of the tuition fees, so I didn't know what to do, but I was not happy. So I went away and I thought about it, and I decided to I thought it's important to actually test these ideas out and see what the institution as a whole has to say. So I wrote an official complaint about it. I essentially said all what I've just told you, exactly what was said, and I explained why it was against the Equalities Act, and so on. And they said that they were going to look into my complaint, and they were taking it seriously. But not long after that, I got an email about my progress on the course, and I was told that while I was doing well with my clinical work with patients, the progress board had noted that my personal views weren't in keeping with the trust's anti-racist thinking, and that I needed to do more learning about diversity. So already, and I was just thinking, hang on, all I've said is that I don't agree that all white people are racist. Yeah. That's not, I've not
controversial, should it?
No, it shouldn't be. And the fact that was being put on my progress report, it felt like that I was being threatened, essentially. And I didn't see why my personal views were being brought into it. My personal views were I was just allowed, I'm allowed to disagree with certain things. So yeah, they were already from the beginning trying to sort of threaten me and intimidate me. In response to my complaint, they did an investigation. They met with me and they met with some of the lecturers. And when I met with the investigator, she said she wasn't sure if the view that white people are a problem was the official policy of the Tavistock or not, and she'd have to check. I was just thinking, this is mad. The idea that we're not sure if viewing a whole group of people as a problem is our policy. Yeah,
we'll check, and someone knows.
Yeah, I was like crazy. And so the investigator did this investigation and got back to me, wrote a long report back to me, and she essentially said, that I was the problem, really, that they encourage all students at the Tavistock to interrogate whiteness. And she said that, and they don't really explain what that means. I don't know how one would go about interrogating whiteness. They don't explain.
Well, I do that every morning in the bathroom. I mean, I assumed everyone else did.
Yeah, it's just a daily occurrence, yeah. And she said that they'd realised that the view of whiteness as a system of power and privilege needs to be written into their policies more, not less. So essentially, they really doubled down. Yeah. So at this point, I just couldn't believe it. I can't believe that actually. And I'm clearly explaining to them that what they're doing is potentially illegal. So I'm quoting the Equalities Act. I'm saying that this is the dictionary definition of racism. And it's like they just didn't seem to care. And it was quite extraordinary. So yeah, I appealed their investigation outcome, and I just got more of the same. The further I went up the hierarchy at the Tavistock, the more I just got the same mantra being repeated to me. And then so there was a review of the term which I had to go to as part of my training, and I was asked by the course lead if there was anything about the training so far that I didn't like, or anything that annoyed me. And they'd sent more reading material through that was pushing these ideas as well. There was Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility, and and just more stuff that was anti-Christian. It was saying that Christianity is responsible for racism and all sorts of things. So I said, well, actually, I don't like this recent reading material. I've already flagged up that some of these ideas are discriminatory, and you're still pushing this onto me. And I just explained that Robin DiAngelo's ideas were not evidence-based. She's not a clinician. I don't know why her ideas are being followed so strongly. And in response to that, they raised a student conduct policy against me, which is the first part of sort of removing someone from the course. The course lead herself wrote a very nasty email to me telling me that I was immature, that I was vexatious, that I shouldn't be allowed to become a psychotherapist. Just because I disagree with Robin DiAngelo.
What? Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. And so that happened. They were going to do an investigation to me. They didn't do that. They didn't follow any of their policies or procedures. They just sent a letter to my house saying I got a letter from the Deputy Director of Education and Training at the Tavistock, and she essentially said that if I continued to speak inappropriately about race, I could be suspended from the course, and it may even affect my ability to enter the profession of psychotherapy.
This is because this is a university. The idea that we go to challenge ourselves and others and find where the truth may lie, but you're being told, no, we've already got the answer. You just learn this, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's right. They've repeatedly said essentially that it's my inability to learn. So the fact that I won't accept these ideas, it shows that I'm not open to learning. Yeah.
It's an inversion all the time, isn't it? They're anti-racist, and if you don't hate men, white people, and Christianity, there's something wrong with you. You're the bigot.
And they're exactly. And to me, I would say I'm expressing a healthy skepticism, which is what learning is. It's thinking critically about something and trying to get to the bottom of it. Whereas they say it's that essentially, if you don't accept what we say 100%, you're not capable of learning. So yes, it's a complete inversion, as you say, of what a good student or university experience should be. You're not there to learn.
Definitely the scientific method, that's the whole underpinning of science, is you only accept something when you fail to disprove it. That doesn't seem to, they don't seem to care all that much about evidence or the scientific method at the Tavistock. So at this point, they had done their, as I understand it, they'd done their best to sort of push you out and you're not the right person. But when that didn't work, they stepped up their tactics, didn't they, and made like a formal complaint to your work. Is that right?
Yeah. So after I got this kind of letter telling me that if I speak inappropriately again, I could be suspended. That's when I started to think I've got I'm going to have to potentially have a legal case on my hands here, because I could see the way it was going. And I spoke to some lawyers and I got some advice, and I decided that I could take legal action against them because they'd essentially racially harassed me and bullied me as a result. I got a bit of press attention, just a little small story in the press in January of this year, explaining that I was essentially what happened and I was taking them to court. And after that, one of them, the lecturer at the Star, who said that Christianity is racist, she made a complaint to the Nursing and Midwifery Council, which is the regulatory body that oversees my nursing, which is separate from my training. That's my job. Essentially saying that, trying to have me struck off as a nurse, basically. She said that I'd caused race-based harm. She said that I had caused people to feel unsafe. She said my Twitter account made her feel unsafe. And I don't even know, I haven't put anything on my Twitter account about her or anything that could be considered a threat to anyone's safety. She said that I'd clearly shown that I was unable to work with diverse patients, and so on, just kind of really over the top, saying that I was hateful, I'd committed a hate incident, gave no evidence of any of this, just accused me of all sorts of things. And there had to be a long investigation into me from the NMC, so they had to go to my place of work and speak to my manager, and there's no, like, I've never had a complaint against me in my work, so there's no evidence of any of this, you know, so far in my name. And they said they couldn't find any evidence of me being racist whatsoever. And then in the end, the NMC kind of backed me and said, you know, nurses are allowed to disagree with critical race theory.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a nice part of this horrible story, isn't it? Yeah,
the NMC were very sane, actually. They said, you know, a student should be allowed to disagree and push back against ideas that they think are wrong. That's what they put in writing. So I was quite pleased with that. But it was very stressful because the whole thing took quite a long time. And obviously nursing is the way that I earn a living. So I was very worried. And then, there's all sorts of things that they've done since. So the course lead gave a speech in front of students saying that I'd committed hate speech and that I had made derogatory comments about members of staff, which I haven't. She didn't quote anything that I'd said because I haven't. She said that I'd created a unsafe learning environment, that I'd traumatized people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she said, so we were doing our seminars over Zoom and we were going to meet in person, and she said the reason we weren't meeting in person was because my hate speech was easier to manage over Zoom. It's I know. This is just
dangerous person, Amy. I didn't know I was getting into.
All I've done is disagree with Robin DiAngelo. Like, I've never sworn, I've never raised my voice, I've never made a personal attack on anyone. Yeah. I've just said these ideas don't make sense, they're wrong, they're discriminatory. That's it. That's it.
But that's enough. And it sounds like rather than take you on in any form of debate, they've decided to, for want of a better word, crucify you. They're hoping that if you just leave or have a nervous breakdown or, you know, something more tragic, then they don't. And I guess they're also trying to make an example to stop anyone else, because that was another question I had. Did anyone around you, anyone on your course, speak up with you, offer you any support at this stage? Nothing?
No, not really. No. I mean, when she gave this speech to the students about me being hateful, and they was just silence from the other students. They didn't agree or disagree. There was just silence.
I'd imagine a fair few of them are supportive of you, but are just too frightened or too scared of the consequences that obviously you face. So you effectively taken on wokery single-handedly up to this point.
Yes, completely. Yeah, it's like the whole institution was telling me that there was something wrong with me because I don't agree with this, and that I'm not anti-racist enough. So it was very, very hard. It was really difficult. And yeah, they've continued to bully me. They stopped me. I was seeing a patient. They stopped me from seeing a patient. They said that they decided I was unsafe to see patients. The reason they gave that was because there was an occasion where I was seeing a patient and there was a really loud noise going on next door, and I knocked on the door and asked if the noise could be lowered, and they said that I'd traumatized the people in the room by doing that, and that I was unsafe to see patients because of that. So they've effectively suspended me. They said they were going to do an investigation into me, but they haven't done that. It's just mad. It's like I can't explain. People think I'm making it up or I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It's like a mad nightmare.
Unfortunately, I believe everything you've said. So just to sort of move it up to reasonably present time, you have instigated your own case against the
Tavistock
and Portman Clinic,
NHS Trust.
Yeah. Before you did that, I mean, you must have been sitting there presumably thinking you've already, well, inadvertently poked a hornet's nest. Did you? Yeah. How long did you take to think? Because you obviously realise the road you're going down is going to be even worse than the one you've already travelled.
Yeah, so I think when they were threatening to suspend me, and they were threatening, they were essentially saying if you make another wrong move, you could be suspended. And they haven't really defined what a wrong move is, because I would say I haven't done anything wrong. So basically they could just use anything against me. So I was pretty clued up as to, I was thinking this is the direction this is going in, is that they're going to deny me my qualification. They're going to, so at that point I felt like I haven't really got that much to lose, because I don't think this is going to end well. So that's when I thought the only way I can defend myself is through the legal route. That's the only way, because their internal investigations amounted to nothing. They just seem to minimize things, and they don't take things seriously. So I thought the only way they're going to take this seriously is if I fight back from a legal perspective. And I think I was right to do so, because even when I served court documents to them, they were still continuing to say and do things that were bullying. This speech that she gave, that happened after I'd served court documents to the Tavistock. So that hasn't deterred them. It's quite remarkable. So yeah, obviously it's a huge thing to go through. It's a very stressful thing to go through, and obviously from a financial perspective, the only way I could do anything like this is through raising money through crowdfunding, because I don't have money myself. So yeah, it was all a risk, and it's all still very uncertain. But I did feel like I've sort of backed into a position where I had no choice. I feel like I need to protect myself, and also I just think if nobody fights back, then this sort of thing will continue.
You're exactly right. I mean, I think I saw the initial story, as you say, that was much earlier this year.
Yeah.
I remember noticing, but I read, I think there were some pieces on you last month, and I think I'm right in saying that you are the first person to challenge this nonsense in the UK courts. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. So far as we can see, this is the first time a legal case has come forward about essentially being forced to adopt critical race theory, and yeah.
And I really think this is, although the odds are almost insurmountable, I would say, because the racism card is, I think, is a work of genius. It doesn't matter what side you're on, you're racist. If you're white, if you see color, you're racist. If you say you don't see color, that's racist. If you embrace other cultures, you're racist. If you don't, like, they've got you, and as they've done with you, if you reject anti-racism, which is accepting that you are de facto racist for being born white, that is proof of your racism. And I imagine the war chest the other side have on this is vast. So
yes, yeah.
I would encourage anyone who is of any means at all to get behind your campaign, to support you, to donate to your crowdfund. I'll put all the links for that.
Thank you.
Because you are, I think you're fantastically brave. There's thousands of people all over the country and all over the world would have been through exactly the same position, and they will just knock their head down because it's just too difficult. They don't want to lose their job. They've got mortgages to pay, which you do too. But you're one of the only people to stand up. So anyone listening, Amy is actually having this fight on your behalf. She's not only fighting for free speech, you're effectively fighting for freedom of thought here, because they're saying you're not even allowed to think.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm crowdfunding at the moment, so you can check out my crowdfund. It's GoFundMe at Stand Up to Woke, or just Google me. I'm sure you'll find it. But yeah, I mean, the Tavistock are throwing as much money as they possibly can. They're getting the best barrister, and they're getting
from you, from the taxpayer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're funding both sides.
Exactly. They're trying to intimidate me with costs at the moment. So, but yeah, I still are very much fighting this, and I think it could be very significant. I want to do it obviously for what's been done to me and the stress and the damage it's caused me, but also I think I need to protect my profession from these ideas, but also more broadly, just Western civilization itself, I think, is undergoing a significant attack at the moment from these ideas. So yeah, I hope it can have as much impact as possible in trying to change things. We've seen some legal cases in relation to the trans stuff, and I think the tide is turning a bit there. And I think with this anti-racism, people are so terrified of standing up to it because they're so scared of being labelled racist or whatever. But if no one does, then it will just continue. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it fell onto you, Amy. But you've got people behind you, and I'm sure after this interview you'll have many more, and we will spread the word. So everyone that's GoFundMe, I think it's Stand Up to Woke, is that right?
Yeah.
You can find Amy on Twitter, Stand Up to Woke. Please give her a follow. And Amy will be checking in with you in the near future and seeing that you're doing all right. But you've got many more supporters than you know. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.